Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Katz, and I'm the Forecasting Product Manager at SAS. Today, I'll be discussing and sharing a demo of the new interactive modeling features in SAS Visual Forecasting. So let me first explain what interactive modeling is. It represents a key modeling capability that provides the forecaster with the tools to evaluate, compare, and select models. It's conducted on a series by series basis. So you can analyze a single time series in more detail. You can compare multiple models that have been created visually, and you can also manually select a champion model. Visual forecasting provides large-scale automation, and this includes automatic model generation, independent variable and event selection, parameter optimization, champion model selection from a set of automatically generated candidate models, as well as forecast generation. But even with all of that, sometimes we need to enhance the system-generated models by providing more personalized attention to specific time series. Since SAS is now following a continuous integration and continuous delivery model for software development, features are released and then enhanced in subsequent releases with additional or enriched capabilities. The features I will be discussing and demoing today are in active development and are scheduled to be available on April 21st. So let's take a look at what those features are. First, the interactive modeling node is a post-processing node that is integrated into the pipeline process flow. And we'll see that in the demo in a few minutes. We're able to analyze a single time series in more detail, and we're able to view some basic plots and tables at this point in time. We're also able to visually compare multiple models. This gives the user the ability to see how it fit the historical data, what the pattern looks like going into the future, and then make a decision on which one they like better. And then lastly, we can manually select a champion model and use that going forward throughout the rest of the flow. As I mentioned earlier, SAS is now following a continuous integration and continuous delivery model for development. As a result, some of the features are at their initial stage of development and will be substantially improved in future releases. For the demo, I'm using a pre-production image. This functionality you see during this demo may change between now and when the software is released in a few weeks as production. With that said, let's proceed to the demo. Okay, I've opened a project that I created here. I'm now going to switch to Pipeline 2, and I will show you how to add an interactive modeling node into the pipeline flow. So I have a pipeline here that has two different types of modeling nodes, and we click on this node icon here, and I select post-processing. And if I hover over this interactive modeling node, I get a short description about the node. And I also get a link to the Help Center if I want more information. One way of getting the node into the pipeline flow is simply by just clicking and dragging it on the connector between the modeling node you want to add it after and the model comparison node. Alternatively, I can click on the connector, right click, go Insert, Post-Processing, and then select Interactive Modeling. Okay, so that's how you add the interactive modeling node. Let me jump back to Pipeline 1. And this one, I just have the one modeling node, and I've added the interactive modeling node, and I've run the first three nodes. So I've run everything down through interactive modeling. So let me go ahead and open the modeling node, interactive modeling node. Okay, so when I first come into the interactive modeling node, I'm dropped on the modeling tab. Here, and then I can navigate to the forecast tab, which is identical to the forecast viewer in each of the modeling nodes. And then I can also go to the series analysis tab. So I'm first going to go to the series analysis tab, and this is where we can explore the series prior to forecasting to get a better feel for maybe how we need to go about modeling this if we wanted to get a better sense for what the patterns look like. Okay, so now here you can see that I am on, let me first go here on the filter tab. So this brings up our faceted filter, which is available in our viewers and in overrides. And I'm going to select a specific supplier, just narrow it down to one supplier. Based on my selections in this filter panel, the right side of the screen here will now show all of the time series that are part of that filter. So I filtered this down from 1,337 time series to 369. Now I'm going to go, and you can see that the dependent variable in this case, which was set up when I created the project, which is revenue, is already in the series analysis. The dependent variable will always be here by default. Now I can click on the analysis tab, and it shows me the types of analyses that are already here. So in this case, I'm going to take the two types of analyses. The time series plot is the one that's already here. And let's now do a little bit more exploration in these. So I can view details, which brings up this little dialog, which shows me by default a graphical view of the time series, a little bit bigger. The other one's just basically a little thumbnail plot. I can also view the table information along with the graph, and that shows up underneath the graph. I can just look at the table view. And I also have the capability to download all of this data from either the table, the graph, or both of them into a CSV file for use in other tools. So let me close this one. And then on the other, for each of the analysis that I've added, I also have the ability to view that in details as well. So here I get the graph, a larger view of the graph. These are resizable just by dragging on the end. So it comes up with a default size, but if you want to enlarge it, you can. And then it's just like the other view, I have the table view, and I can toggle them on and off, and then I can also download. As I change time series here and I select another time series on the right, remember this is series by series analysis. So if I click on another time series here, all of the graphs will refresh to reflect what's on the series that's been selected. If I want to add another variable, in this case, the model view here lists all of the independent or dependent and all of the independent variables. In this case, I only have one independent variable, so I can drag that into another container. This one's not going to be very interesting because it's a discount and it looks like it's almost flat, if not flat. And then I can do the same thing with the analyses. I can drag those over as well. If I decide I don't want to see one of them, I can just delete that particular analysis tile. And if I decide I don't want to view this information anymore in the container, I can actually delete the entire container. And in this first container, I can I can clear all, and that basically takes me back to the default setting, which is just having the dependent variable here. So that's the series analysis part of it. And now let's switch over to the modeling tab. Okay, so the first thing you should have noticed is when we moved over to the modeling tab, my filter selection remained. So the Jennifer filter that I selected on the series analysis tab has carried over here. It's still checked on the facet panel, and the time series on the right panel, you can see also represents the 369 series. And it maintained the series that I had selected. So when we look at this view, you'll see this table at the top, which represents models that have been generated for this particular time series. Let me jump up to the first time series. And then underneath it is a table of the historical data and the forecast information, forecast fit in the historical region, and then the forecast going forward along with the confidence bands. As I change series, each of these, the table with the model information, as well as the graph underneath it, are going to adjust based on the selection. Okay, now what I want to do is, you'll notice that there's two icons up here. This first one is a champion icon, which allows me to select any of the models that are in the list and set it as the champion model. The other icon, which right now is inactive, is what gives me the ability to compare selected models. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I only have two models here, so I'll select both of them. And I can now hit the compare icon. You can see is now active. And when I hit that, it now brings up another dialog window. Again, this can be resized if you want to make it bigger or smaller. And what you see at the top of this is a table which gives you the list of the models, along with all of the statistics that we have. And we have somewhere on the order of around 50 or 52 different statistics that we generate and measure each time. In yellow, the best statistic or best value for each individual statistic is highlighted. In some cases, it's the highest, such as these first two. In most cases, lower is better, but there are a couple statistics where higher is better, and those will be highlighted accordingly. So you can see in these first two columns, the highest values are highlighted, and then in these other ones. And then I can just grab the scroll bar and continue across the screen to look at all of the different statistics. Some of the more common ones, like MAPE or MAE, like I said, they're all on the list here. You can just scroll through. You can also come up and manage the columns. So if there's certain statistics you do not want to see, you can just turn them off. But by default, they're all turned on. So if I was only interested in looking at 4 or 5 statistics, I can just take all the other ones, move them into the hidden bucket, and I'll only see the ones that I'm interested in. Okay, and then the graph on the bottom, you can see that this has both models on it. If you look at the legend, so it has both the ARIMA model and then it has the exponential smoothing model in yellow, along with the confidence bands or shading for the confidence bands also in different colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this to make this a little more readable. And you can see the different model fit across the historical region. And then I have scroll bars where I can scroll both horizontally and vertically and see how the model, works over the historical range. And then as I move into the forecast range, I can also see how the different models perform, the shape of the forecast, along with the confidence bands around each of those. Okay, let me cancel or close out the model comparison part of this, and let me now go to setting a model as a champion. When I look at this series, I really like how the second model fits, so I want to set this one as the champion. So I just hit the little set champion icon, and you'll notice a couple things that have changed on the screen. I see this little warning icon that pops up next to the time series that I'm on. And then I see the message strip up here now has a commit change button for me to commit the changes. So I have not committed anything at this point. All I've done is selected it. So I can either hit this button to submit it. Alternatively, I can right click on this and I can commit this individual series, or I can discard the changes. Now I do have the ability to make multiple changes and then commit them all at the same time. So I'm going to go up to this first series and I'm going to set this first model as the champion model. And you can see the icon there. And now I'm going to commit the changes for both of these series at the same time. So I hit commit change, and now I get a dialog that comes up recommitting the changes. So I have other options here that I can do. So by default, all of the changes that I've made will be checked, and I can just go ahead and commit all of them by hitting the commit button. In addition, I can unselect. So imagine this list is much longer, and as I'm reviewing it, there's like, okay, I'm fine committing these 5, but these other 2, I want to go back and look at it in a little more detail before I commit them. So I can uncheck those, and only the ones that have a check mark will be committed if I hit commit. In addition, I can check this box down here to discard changes to any of the unchecked series. And basically what that'll do is it'll just throw the changes away. So if I uncheck anything up here and then check this box, those unchecked ones, when this is checked, will be thrown away. And if I realize I want to go back and maybe make a change on another series before committing all of them at the same time, I can just hit cancel and it takes me back to the screen where I can continue working and select another series. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and commit the changes. And this will update all of the tables that have forecast information, model information, to now reflect the changes that I have made. Okay, the changes have been committed. We no longer see the commit up here, and now I'm free to either work with other series. If I want to make additional changes, I can change the filters to get to different series. Again, if I have a very large list of series, I don't necessarily want to scroll down the whole list. I want to use the filters for easier navigation. One thing to notice after I've committed the changes is that warning icon that was here on the series where changes have been made has now been changed to this little diamond icon. So that indicates that a change has been made for that time series. So the changes have committed, and this concludes the demo portion. So let me switch back to the PowerPoint deck. Okay, now we're back to the PowerPoint deck. So let's take a quick glance at some of the future functionality that's going to be coming with the interactive modeling node. There will be additional options to analyze a single time series. Right now, we have a very limited set, but we'll be adding many, many more over the coming months. We'll also be adding additional model diagnostics. We'll also be adding a results viewer within the interactive modeling node that will contain a summary of all of the information and activity and the changes that have been made by the user. You'll have the ability to create different model types and specifications from scratch. So this means you can construct an ARIMA model or an exponential smoothing model or an Aramax model or a UCM model and build the model up from the ground up, specifying every detail of the model yourself. We'll also have the ability in the future to be able to copy and modify an existing model. So you would select an existing model, whether it's system generated or a previous custom model that you built. You create a copy of it, and then you can now tweak and modify that model to try and improve on whatever was done previously to get a better forecast. We'll add the ability for users to conduct what-if analysis, or what we're going to call input series analysis. This is also known as scenario analysis. So this allows you to change the values of the input variables and see what the impact is on your dependent variables. So for the example that we were given, you could change the discount and see how that would impact the revenue that you would expect to get based on the model that you've selected. So this again would be on a model by model basis. So you're working within a series, and then the what if analysis, you select a model, and then you conduct the what if analysis within that model. And then we'll also add the ability to perform rolling simulations to evaluate forecast accuracy over time. So my email address is shown on the slide. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have. And thank you for watching.